Yes, the 9/11 Truth Group is international. We have a group of a couple dozen people here in Victoria that are involved, and certainly I welcome anybody else to get involved. First of all, in case I forget it in my 10 minutes, we will be having, we're helping to bring a professional here to Victoria to give a presentation on April the 20th. He's an architect out of San Francisco. His name is Richard Gage, a member of the American Institute of Architects. And his presentation, I haven't seen it, but I understand it gives an explanation of how the Twin Towers in New York fell. And they didn't fall according to the official version of a plane hit and fires. They certainly got hit by planes, but it wasn't fires that brought those buildings down. So how does the events of September the 11th tie into, related to the Security and Prosperity Agreement? I'm not the expert. I've done a fair bit of reading and watching DVDs and so on, and I'm going to try to pass along to you my understanding of how this ties in. It was published on the web in, I think it was 1999 or 2000, a thing called the New American Century. The authors of that were major members of the current Bush administration, Pearl, Wolfowitz, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and so on. And essentially, the document was a plan, a proposal for far greater influence by the United States globally. They wanted to have greater military and corporate and cultural influence around the world. And to do that, that required a great deal more military spending. But ordinarily, citizens resist the idea of more military spending and the prospects of war. And so what that requires ordinarily is to scare the populace. And what they needed, and they have it right in the document, quote, a catalyzing event, a new Pearl Harbor, unquote. And lo and behold, that event came along about 2 years after they wrote the document. And that's the 9/11. That was what they were waiting for, or something like that. The term conspiracy theory, of course, is out there. Well, you've got to be careful about what's fact and truth and what's conspiracy, what's theory. The facts that now come forward is that the official version of what happened ain't true. Defies the laws of science. The question is, what really did happen? And that's where you can get into all kinds of theories. What the truth movement is looking for is actually what we want is Canada to lead an international investigation, reopen the investigation, an open citizens' investigation of what really happened so we can find out what the truth is. I will give you a few little tidbits of some of the proof that the official version isn't true, but I'll get to that shortly. I want to try to tie it in with the SPP. This effort to have greater influence around the globe required a strong power base. You need a heck of a lot of resources, you need a lot of oil. So what as we've seen, is that they're after the oil in the Mideast. They're after Canadian oil, they've got that, but they didn't have to militarily invade us once again. 19 military invasions by the US against Canada over the centuries, decades. But what they've done this time is a corporate invasion of Canada. And they have, as you've heard, probably going to hear more of it in presentations, is that they've been working through negotiations at the corporate level, not the citizen level, don't involve the citizens, but involve the corporations. They're running the show of getting Canada on board to be part of the resource base for the United States. This North American Union is not about all of us working together on this continent, it's about all of us supporting the United States in their efforts and their global efforts. And that's how it ties together. The SPP is just another step in that plan to try to, first of all, get the security perimeter, get us all afraid of the boogeyman outside, the terrorists, and so we'll all get together. We'll want to unify our forces and our economies to fend off this threat, this perceived threat, I'll suggest. And I see that as how the two tie together. One way that they're very much related, the security, prosperity, partnership and the whole event around 9/11 is the secrecy, which we've been hearing here in the presentations, probably hear more of it. There's such a clandestine effort and so much secrecy about it all. The negotiations for the Security Prosperity Agreement are not going to happen in Parliament, haven't been, and probably aren't going to happen. It's so secretive.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
What happened on 9/11 is there's so much secrecy around that. We haven't had an open investigation of it. The 9/11 Commission that did occur was a farce, plain and simple. The guy that ran that was... Well, I'm glad to hear there's so many educated people here on the subject. That guy, Philip Zelikow, was in it to protect the Bush administration. He was the director of the commission, and he just protected the Bush interests. I'll finish off with a couple little tidbits. I've over time here been gradually getting the information about that sort of proves that the official version is wrong. And the question of what brought down the towers, the official version is fire. And it's even been, there's been a report by NIST, the National Institute on Science and Technology, I think is what it is, in the United States. And they came up with a great explanation of how the fires brought it down. But it's interesting, in their modeling, to try to have their model bring the towers down, what they assumed was the fires in the tower were so raging hot, 1,000-degree temperatures and so on, it softened the steel and caused the buildings to collapse. Well, if you make that assumption in your model, then of course your model is going to make the buildings collapse. So what they did is what they call circular science, and it just is nonsense. Little tidbits of information, I'm finally putting it together. There weren't any 1,000-degree fire going on in that building. If it did, it was only for minutes. What finally came out about a year after 9/11, and it's been ignored by these investigations, is there were 2 firemen in the impact zone on the 78th floor in the impact zone just before, minutes before the buildings collapsed. And these fellows were radioing back.
We got tanks. I saw in the pockets of fire. We should be able to knock it down with 2 lines. Where you know that? 78th floor. We got tanks. I saw in the pockets of fire.
And they're in the zone, the impact zone, radioing back. They can't be there if the temperature is 400, 800,000 degrees, the temperatures it would take to soften the steel to cause the buildings to collapse. That's the direct proof that there weren't raging fires in there. So what brought those buildings down? Not the fires, as the official version says. The terrorists, 19 terrorists flew the planes. Well, we know the planes flew. We're not sure if they were truly passenger planes. One of them that hit the towers, see the second one, see the still photograph of it, it has a cylinder attached to the belly. What commercial aircraft, passenger aircraft, has a cylinder attached to the belly of an aircraft? That needs to be investigated. But also, of those 19 terrorists, 6 of them are known to be alive. So again, the official story is full of holes. And it goes on. Those are just 2 for you to take home. Probably a lot of you already know it. It seems like you're so well educated on this. But it just goes on and on and on. There's so much information coming up to show that the official version is not true. It's all part of this secrecy. And we need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to clarify what happened on 9/11, and that'll help us to, I think, fight against this Security and Prosperity Agreement and finally discover this whole clandestine operation that's going on. There's my 10 minutes. Thanks.
But it was hating a nerve. Shaded his out-of-town trips, and this was the 3rd. 1 in 2 weeks, he ain't wanting to beef. Explaining he's the one the job picks when they need someone.